Hello everyone, it's Infinity Gamer here, and I am super excited with the recent announcement that Corvus Belli have made about a couple of new launches that they've got. So we've seen a couple of these being previewed. We have the Shona Carano miniature, which is for Code 1, N4, and Aristea. Now, I always want to call this person Shona Corona, and I know that that's not correct. So this Shona Carano miniature is incredibly versatile. As you can see at the bottom, she's able to be played in Aristea, N4, and also Code 1. Now, there isn't a Code 1 profile available for her yet, so I can only assume that very soon something's going to get updated and she's going to be available in one of the factions that are available, and then obviously fully playable in N4 and also Aristea. So if you don't know what Aristea is, it's a separate board game by Corvus Belli that is set in the Hexadome, and it is a fantastic game where two teams battle it out against each other. Now, Shona Carano was part of the Legendary Bahadurs expansion pack, which you can see here, and so she had a miniature. Now, I must admit, this was not one of my favourite miniatures in Aristea, or even this box, so I am very glad that she's getting a bit of an update. I am tempted to grab this model, not just because she's playable in Code 1, but because it will make a great replacement for the model that came in the Aristea expansion set. So again, this is great value because it is basically playable within all of Corvus Belli's games, pretty much. Now, I'm a little bit ignorant about her, to be honest, and her history. I'm not entirely sure which faction she's going to fit into. I think she's Pano, but I will very happily get corrected on that if I am wrong. I can't see anything obvious on the screenshot that we have here, but again, that's more my ignorance. I am still a relatively new player, despite how much I ramble on about how much I know. I actually know very, very little. So yeah, Shona Carano, not her name, but that is why I should call it for now. She obviously comes, you can see on the box set that she comes with the model, an initiative card, and an Aristea character card. So it looks as though she is ready to play in Aristea just by buying this blister set. So if you liked the idea of having her, but you didn't fancy buying the entire Legendary Bahadurs expansion, then this is obviously a great way to get her on her own. So that is one of the things that got announced. The next thing that got announced that I'm very excited about is obviously N4. So you can see here the core book, the rule book, and they are coming in what looks like potentially a limited edition box of some sort where they both come together. They've obviously got that hard cover editions, and then obviously the sleeve that they can come in. I love the artwork on the front of this. It's pretty stunning. That is, I believe, a Yu Jing model of some sort. It's not super familiar to me, so I know it's not O12 and it's not Combined Army, and it doesn't look particularly Pano. So again, I'm happy to display my ignorance, but it looks ruddy cool regardless. Now, obviously, N4 is going to be the same as N3, where even though they do launch hardcover versions, they will also, so they, being Corvus Belli, will launch this as a free download online. But if you prefer to have hard copies, if you like having these sort of collector's editions, then that's what's available here. It will come with a limited edition exclusive miniature, but this looks pretty cool. Obviously, this is one of the cool things that I love about Infinity, is that if you like the hardcover stuff, you can buy it if that's your preference, but obviously you don't need it in order to play the games. The rules will be readily available for anyone and everyone. But let's jump onto the thing that I'm really excited about, and that is the Starmada action pack for O12. As you know, I'm a huge O12 fanboy, having bought the Wildfire set, jumped into O12 when they first got released, and even though Combined Army, I played a little bit, the Shazbasti models are pretty cool, and they are very good in Code 1. O12 is really where my heart is at. So, on the cover, we've got some pretty cool stuff here. Now, the Starmada is basically going to be a sectorial for O12. Now, if you've only come in playing Code 1, you're not really going to know what sectorials are. They were very prominent in N3, and so obviously this is in anticipation for N4. Now, a sectorial has limitations, but also unlocks special rewards if you choose to run them. Now, if you run a faction without using a sectorial, you're running what's called vanilla, and that's very standard. You don't necessarily get all the bonuses, but you also get huge flexibility of choice because you can pretty much run any model within that faction almost. As soon as you're running a sectorial, you are a little bit more limited to the models you can take, but you then unlock special abilities. So things like link teams, which I won't get into massive detail. You know, you can take those, which means that things like your ARO bursts could increase depending on the number of people in a link team, for example, or a fire team. So there are benefits, there are drawbacks. Some people run them and love them, some people never ever run them, so it's not going to be make or break. But regardless of whether you run the Starmada sectorial, which is what it's likely to end up being, there's some cool models in here, which I'm really excited about. And some of them have got me a little bit confused as well. So, running from left to right, because that's pretty cool. We have a bike. Now, okay. The first thing I'm going to apologise here is that I'm pretty excited. So I'm going to probably ramble like I am now. So if the audio for this video is maybe the worst you've ever heard, it's because I either got too excited or I went off on a massive tangent and then realised that that was interesting to no one but me. So, apology out the way. A bike for O12. I mean, it looks cool. Now, I know we can't use the concept art to really guarantee that that's what the model's going to look like, but it just looks amazing. So it kind of has that hubless center, which we've already seen on some of the other sectorials or the other factions from N3. So that's not necessarily anything new. But I think the styling here is still a nod to anime, which is obviously stunning, but also looks like it's going to stay true to that O12 fairly modern styling, which I really love. I don't like it when it swings too far anime. So we've got the biker dude. Now, this is going to be cool as well, because generally with bikes, they've got fast movement profiles. You know, we're maybe looking at 6'4" movement, which will be really cool. Not entirely sure what weapons it's going to have, but if it's got adhesive, that would be pretty cool. Even if it's got something like a boarding shotgun, that's going to be great. It's probably going to come with a couple of options in terms of weapons loadout. Don't know anything else. We don't even know the name of this yet. As you can see on the right-hand side, here's a list that I've pulled from Wikipedia of Greek letters. You can see that quite a few have already been used, and there's a couple that haven't yet. But we can't necessarily infer from that it's going to follow one of those names. Now, something like Zeta, for example, that's obviously one of the Greek letters that hasn't been used yet. We know that that's likely to be the tag that's coming out later this year for O12. So I don't think that's really what it's going to end up being called, this bike. We've seen Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, Epsilon, Zeta, as I've said, has already been used. The Theta has also been potentially flagged, I think, as kind of like a mid-heavy, but not sure. I've seen that name come up before in the forums and the chats. Kappa's obviously already been used. Lambda's been used. Psi has already been used with the Cyclops, and the Omega's obviously been used. So there's not a lot. Sigma, I'd like the name Sigma, so I would half expect for that to end up in an O12 model at some stage. Whether it's for this bike or not remains to be seen. Omicron, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I would not be mad if the bike units were called Omicrons, for example. The Tau is an interesting one, obviously, because Games Workshop like to kind of think that they own that, just like they own Space Humans, Space Elves, and anything with a space in front of it. It would be interesting to see if Corpus Belli go with Tau. I think they could. I think they could get away with it. But it will be interesting to see if they actually end up using that sort of thing. I don't know that Phi, Chi, Upsilon, Xi, Pi, Rho, those sorts of things have the same ring to them. Nu. Iota is another one that might actually end up getting used. So there are a couple in here where maybe that could suit the bike unit. I like the idea of Sigma. I tried to look at the symbol on the front of the bike. It kind of looked like a star on the shield that's right on the very front. I think that's more the Sword 4 Starmada symbol than actually giving us any sort of clue as to what this might be called, which is a bit of a shame, because it would be nice to if they sneaked in a little clue for us small little minion people. But it's pretty cool regardless. So yeah, no real clues as to what that could potentially be called. It looks really cool. Obviously, he's wielding a pistol. You can see that in the air. You can't necessarily see any major indications as to what the main weapon loadout might be, unless someone's actually managed to pull through a better render, maybe brightened up the image or something like that, but I can't see that from what we've got here. It looks cool. I can't wait to get it. For me alone, just having the bike in the Starmada pack almost made it worthwhile just solo, because we haven't seen anything like that before. It would give huge amounts of mobility to the O12 force, which would be fantastic for grabbing objectives, and depending on its weapon loadout and its capability, could be a pretty cool option, but I can definitely see running this just to give my lists a bit of speed. So don't know what that's called. Looks really cool. I love it. It's brilliant. There's nothing else to really say about that. What about the next guy along? So silver-haired, double akimbo pew pew guy. A little bit of controversy around this, because he basically could fall into just like the Kappa side of things. Looks fairly standard. And there's nothing in, especially the Code 1 army builder, that gives away what he could be based on the weapons loadout, because nothing really comes with just double pistols as far as I could see. So no major giveaways here. I'm hoping it's something like a Psychop, maybe a Cyber Ghost, but I don't think it's a Cyber Ghost for reasons that I'll explain later when I go through another model. So if this is a Psychop, that would actually be pretty cool. We don't currently have a model for a Psychop yet in the Code 1 list. Psychops were new for Code 1. So it would be cool if they were launching a model for that. That would actually be pretty nice. There's not heaps that I can basically take away from his armor, his weapon loadout, anything like that. So it basically, my best guess is that it might be a Psychop. I don't think it's another Kappa loadout. But yeah, that's something to consider. So my bet is Psychop for that one. Blackbeard next to him. So there's a couple of clues here as to who this one is, and I'm basically going to put all my money on it being one particular model. So there's been a couple of guesses that this might be Saladin. Now, I don't think that's the case because we actually got teased Saladin's model in Defiance, which is what you can see there. And whereas there's a similarity, I don't think this is him. The clues that I've got here is the monofilament close combat weapon, which is the sword that he has in his hand, and also the cloak with the kind of camo displacement texture to it. I think the monofilament CC plus that mimetism cloak, which could be a mimetism -6 as far as I'm looking at it, means that I reckon this is Casanova. And in fact, I'm putting my money on this being Casanova. Rather than anyone else, which would be cool because again, Casanova was, I think, a new model for Code 1. I don't remember seeing it in N3, but the list was a lot bigger and I was a lot newer to O12, so that doesn't help. So I think Casanova being new, I reckon that that's what this model is. So then we move to the middle at the front. So pretty generic, again, very much like the Psychop option, probably a Kappa here. Some people I've seen saying that they think it's an alternative Sirius. I don't think it is at all, because I think we'd be seeing the dog somewhere as well. I don't think they'll do Team Sirius just solo with the human. So I think it's a Kappa. Again, looking at some of the weapon loadouts that Corvus Belli are very handily released early. Now, unfortunately for things like HMG, it seems like each faction has its own variant of the HMG. It's not like the HMG is a standard weapon in terms of its look. There's a different look for Pano, Yujing, even Combined Army. Now, this could be the HMG Kappa, is what a lot of people are saying, and I think it could potentially be correct. Which is good, because obviously we've basically got combi rifle Kappas at the moment, with I think a pistol Kappa in the paint set that Vallejo released. So yeah, possibly HMG Kappa, maybe. That's my best guess at the moment. It looks pretty generic, and the weapon would be the only clue. Yeah. Then we've got Bron, which could be Bronco, could be Bront. Yeah, doesn't give a lot away, that Bron. Now, I'm wondering if the stripes on the shoulder would be an indication that it is a lieutenant option. Now, technically not, because 2 chevrons on the shoulder, I believe, are a corporal in most military factions. So I don't think that that's really... I think that's me reading into things a bit too much. The mask has again thrown me off several times before, because they've changed the Delta mask, so it's not like one head or one mask is even consistent amongst each of the units themselves. So part of me thought that this was maybe just a different sculpt for the Gamma. Now, obviously, those of you are probably raising your eyebrows right now and just going, that's ridiculous, because the Gamma is a very chunky boy and this is not. But if you actually look at the Defiance Gamma, it's a little bit more lightweight than the one that actually hit Wildfire. So I don't know if they're going to do a slight variant sculpt. It's the same with something like the Guelo. Now, the Guelo that came in Wildfire had quite spindly, tiny little feet, like hooves. And then the Guelo that's in Defiance has got a bit chunkier legs. So they might also adapt sculpts for different versions. So, but then I saw the jacket, and I kind of thought, that's not quite right. Now, to me, this is more on the Omega scaling, but is again maybe a slightly lighter version of the Omega. There's probably people who are bashing their heads to the keyboard just going, it's the Theta or it's this. But again, I've tried to scour a whole bunch of things to try and get what this might be. And there's nothing that's really coming out super obvious. Now, the Zeta, which I think is the tag, obviously was leaked as part of the O12 groupings. There hasn't been a lot of talk about it. Now, I think the Zeta is potentially going to be a medium heavy infantry, was I think the earlier rumours around it when people first spotted it. And then I think the Theta is actually going to be the tag option that's coming later in this year. So could this be a Zeta? Could it be a Theta? Could it be neither of those things and just a cool guy in a pirate's jacket? Who knows? Again, the mask doesn't give us anything away. The weapon looks like it's potentially a multi-rifle. Could be a boarding shotgun style thing. Could be an HMG. Again, slight variations. So that one's actually got me pretty stumped, and I don't have the same level of confidence to say this is definitely what I think it is. It's cool. It looks amazing. I'm going to be glad to have it regardless of what it is. Guy on the far right is a little bit... has got me stumped. Now, initial reactions are that it's a Delta because you've got the fins on the back. So, again, but do we really need another Delta? So how many have we had? We've had the one that came in Operation Wildfire. We then had Cuervo Goldstein, who's a Basilisk level Delta, but is also kind of a special character, so he doesn't really count. We then obviously only just had the Delta Doctor released with the Yudbot. We've then had 2 Deltas teased as part of the Defiance set, so 2 different loadouts. Are we really potentially going to get, what's that, kind of at least a 4th, maybe a 5th Delta in this one? I don't think so. So then I leant towards Crusher. Now, because the thing that gives it the fins is, I think, the combat jump ability. Now, obviously, 1 or 2 of the profiles is the combat jump ability. Now, when we look at the Code 1 profiles, we see that only 1 of the Crusher's profiles has combat jump and also parachutist, which is exactly the same as the Delta. So kind of makes sense that they might have the same fins as a Delta because they've got the same abilities there. Obviously, the mask is a little bit different, but as I've said already, we can't infer much from that because actually the Delta Doctor's head is completely different to the standard Delta that came in Operation Wildfire. So it could be that they're going to give a 3rd body option for that. The thing that really confused me around this one is I was pretty sure that it was the Crusher, because again, it's a new model for Code 1. We don't actually have a model for it yet, so it makes sense for them to release it as part of this sectorial expansion. But the Crusher with combat jump and parachutist in Code 1 currently has a boarding shotgun. Now, the weapon that this model is holding looks a bit longer, kind of like a multi-rifle in my eyes. And that does not have the combat jump or the parachutist option. It only has forward deployment 8 inches. So would it be a multi-rifle on a combat jump parachutist Crusher? Well, there is every possibility that in N4, the list variations are going to expand beyond what's available in Code 1. So could it be a Crusher with a multi-rifle, but it's not available in Code 1, but will be available in N4? Very probably. So maybe I can't guess too much from the weapon loadout to the fins. I'm hoping it's a Crusher, because again, we don't have a model for that, and it would be nice too, because they're actually pretty useful models. I hope it's not another Delta, because we've got a lot of those, and obviously Defiance coming out, there'll be a couple of options to pick up some more Deltas. So my hope is that this is a Crusher. And then we've got Sneaky McSneakface in the background. So people were quite quick to pick that one up. I love the fact that Corvus Belli has done this, so thank you so much to the Corvus Belli marketing team, because every single one of us fans loves a small little Easter egg, or at least a teaser, in these sorts of things. So it looks as though there's a silhouette in the background of the door. Now, this might be us reading too much into it and wishful thinking, but, you know, let's run with this wild and baseless speculation, because we can. So there's a couple of options here. And there's obviously more than a couple of options, because at the moment we can't tell what it is, and it could be anything. Right, so it looks like it's potentially a hooded figure. Maybe. There's a couple of models that are, again, pretty good in O12 that don't yet have models, that I'm hoping they use this as an opportunity to release models for them. 2 of those are the Razor and the Lynx. Now, the Lynx, we've actually already seen potential casts for Defiance as part of the O12 expansion that we've already highlighted. Now, in none of those images are the Lynx wearing hoods. So if we go down the path that this character, whatever it is wearing a hood, maybe it's not likely to be a Lynx. Now, again, as we've potentially got Lynx models coming out in Defiance, would they then release some of those in this Starmada pack? Maybe not. Or would they use it as an opportunity to release a model that doesn't yet have, to release a model for a unit that doesn't yet have a model, but has a profile, and it's actually a pretty solid profile within the O12 list, and that could be the Razor. Now, personally, I'm gunning for this being the Razor. I've run the Razor pretty much in every Code 1 game I've played so far. I love it being forward, deploying mines. I think it's a great model. It's not super costly, but it gives us a huge amount of variety. I would probably look to pick up some Lynx models through Defiance, and then it would be cool if this Starmada pack actually had a Razor. So that is pretty wild speculation across the whole board. Again, none of this is definitive. This is just the wild ramblings of a massive fan who is very excited for this pack because as an O12 player, I've pretty much bought everything that's come available for O12. I think the only thing that I haven't picked up is the Alpha, purely because I did not see that I would be taking it at all. I couldn't see a role for it in any of my lists. However, I've got the Lambdas on pre-order because even though I may not take the Lambdas very often, it's also handy to have a couple of extra Yud-bots, especially as I do take the Beta Trooper every so often. So actually having a Beta Trooper Doctor with a couple of Yud-bots at only half a point each in Code 1 games is actually going to be pretty useful. So I'm mostly getting the Lambda set for the Yud-bots and just for extra availability and because I'm a bit of a hoarder when it comes to models that I like the look of. I then have the Copperbot remotes also on pre-order because I've pretty much taken a serious dog as a stand-in for a remote in, again, almost every game I've played. The Copperbots for me, they're a great option. I also love the models again. This just ticks my box of basically hoarding everything that looks good, and I love pretty much everything that comes out of the O12 list. Whoever designs the O12 models, by the way, if anyone who knows them happens to be watching this, you have done a fantastic job. Like, every single one of these Infinity miniatures looks stunning. I think the only one that I potentially do not like is the Yudbot. Only because I feel like the style doesn't fit the rest of it. But in terms of its actual design, then when I got to painting it, I fell in love with it as I was applying layer and layers of paint because I appreciated some of the details and everything. But honestly, from the Epsilon to the Deltas to the Omega, everything in the O12 list looks stunning. Whoever has designed those, whoever's done the sculpt for those, wow, just wow. And again, these Copperbots I'm really excited for, and everything else that's coming out. I'm excited to see the Defiant stuff come out. I warned you that I would ramble, and here I am. Okay, so to wrap this up and not enable this to just be the ramblings of a complete idiot, the Starmada set is coming. It's O12 sectorial for N4. Some of these models are going to be available in Code 1. I really hope that they're going to use this as an opportunity to add to some of the new profiles that got released. I'm very certain that that's a Casanova model, which is fantastic. I'm going to be getting this regardless because it's O12, it's amazing, and it's got a bike in it, which is just brilliant. Like, I'm really, really excited for that. I'm very excited for N4. The hype is starting to build. The train has left the station. I am fully on board. I am there. If you want to come with me, listen to more ramblings of an idiot who gets excited over a couple of images released, subscribe. Obviously, you can follow me on Instagram if you want to see painting updates, some terrain being painted, and just general behind-the-scenes nonsense. And, yep, I will follow this up with another video soon.